You are listening to Latinx America, a podcast focused on highlighting catalysts who are using, leveraging, or creating technology to help our community achieve more. With your host, Adriana Flores Chagade. Today's guest is Justino Mora. He's an immigrant rights activist, entrepreneur, self-taught software engineer, and co-founder of Undocumedia. Through Undocumedia, Justino leverages the power of social media and tech to mobilize, inform, and educate the masses on immigration and other social justice issues. In the summer of 2000, Justino and his family immigrated to the United States from Mexico. Justino studied computer science and political science at UCLA, and in 2015, he became the first in his family to graduate from university. His passion lies in the intersection of tech, politics, and social media. In 2008, Justino became involved in the fight for immigrant rights and helped lead and organize the statewide campaigns that culminated in the passage of the California DREAM Act and other pro-immigration legislation. In 2012, Justino played an important role in the Right to Dream campaign that proved pivotal in pressuring the Obama administration to grant deferred action, better known as DACA, for undocumented youth. In May 2013, Justino was one of the 7 immigrant rights activists who were invited to share their story and discuss immigration reform with President Obama and Vice President Biden in the Oval Office. Justino has also been able to share his story and ideas on how to use tech for social good with several Silicon Valley leaders, including the founders of Facebook, LinkedIn, Dropbox, and Groupon. Through his advocacy, Justino has helped thousands of undocumented youth apply for DACA, find scholarship resources, apply to college, and become activists themselves. Thank you, Justino Mora, for joining us today. We're very excited to have you at Latinx America. I'd love to start by learning about you. Can you tell us about your story?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for the invitation and for having me. My journey begins in Mexico. I do a lot of work in the intersection of tech and civic engagement and immigration. And my story begins with my experience growing up in Mexico. So I was born in Mexico, and then I came to the U.S. at the age of 11 with my mom and my 2 siblings. And that experience growing up in extreme poverty in Mexico and going through domestic violence and coming over to the US, that had a huge impact in my view of, the need to become active, not only in our close communities, but also at a bigger scale. So when I came to the US, I had my dreams of becoming an aerospace engineer. That was my goal in high school. I wanted to become an aerospace engineer. I had a really difficult time learning the language since I was 11 when I came to the US. But my mom always, told me, she would always tell us since we were little kids that education is the key to success and is, a way to, move forward in life. So that's what I wanted to do, become an aerospace engineer. But my immigration status, being a DACA recipient, well, not at that moment, but being an undocumented immigrant at that point in time, I realized that I would not be able to exercise and use my aerospace engineering degree because of my immigration status. So that pushed me to consider something else. And I'm really glad that I took a computer science class in community college. I learned my first programming language was C. And that exposed me to this, new world that I found really fascinating and interesting. I found it really rewarding to write programs and then see them do the things that I would ask them to do. And that's how I started my this career in the intersection of tech, immigration, and civic engagement by taking that class. And at around the same time, I became involved in the undocumented youth movement. One of my friends from my English class, she was undocumented. I was not outspoken about my status. I was really quiet. I was really private, and she was public. She was outspoken, and she was the one that sort of like introduced me to this role of activism. And it was at that point in time when I thought there's got to be a way to combine both passions, my passion for tech and my passion for civic engagement and bringing about change. So that's how my passion started.
Did you take this life-changing computer science class in high school or at the community college?
Yeah, it was at community college. That was my first year at Mount SAC.
So, you're also a great role model for those students who start at the community college since you launched your passion at Mount SAC and then transferred to UCLA.
Correct. Yes. And I'm really glad that I went to community college. For me, it was a really rewarding experience. My classes were really small. I took advantage of the honors classes and of every single resource and opportunity. And I can say that some of those classes in community college were definitely more, advanced and rigorous than some of the classes at UCLA when it came to computer science.
In your opinion, Justino, what are the most pressing issues impacting our community today from the lens of an activist, a technologist, and someone that is interested in constant change?
Yeah. So there are several issues affecting our communities. I think the first one that needs to be pointed out is the fact that immigrants are being treated as second class citizens. Just overall, our humanity is every day is being questioned, and every day is being degraded by a racist, anti-immigrant, xenophobic administration. So that's like one of the biggest issues. The fact that this administration, the Trump administration, continues to dehumanize immigrants. So at a bigger scale, that's one of the biggest problems. When it comes to tech, um, another issue is the lack of information and opportunities for our communities to learn the latest about what's happening in the tech world. And I think that's a huge disadvantage for not only the Latino community but every single community that is low income, that is part of the people of color communities, because the moment we don't know what's going on with tech, that puts us in a disadvantage across every single level: education, economic, social, legal. Because, sometimes I learned about cryptocurrency. Cryptocurrency is a perfect example. So I learned about cryptocurrency and Bitcoin back in 2011. And I was one of the one of the, I guess, first wave of technologists that became interested in that, learn about the technology. And it wasn't until last year when some of my friends began talking about cryptocurrency, and I tell them, well, this has been around for a while. um, so there's that problem that in our communities, whenever we talk about tech or whenever we talk about technology, many people in our community, one, are not up to date. Two, they don't see themselves as tech creators. They see themselves as tech consumers, as users of Facebook, Snapchat, Google, these big tech platforms. But when when it comes to creating these platforms, many people in our community don't see themselves as capable. They don't see themselves capable of creating a technological platform. So I think that's one of the things that I want to change. I want people to start thinking about, being creators. I want them to start thinking about how to solve, problems that they're facing on a day-to-day basis with technology. I mean, they can start really simple by integrating current existing technologies, and then, later on, start thinking about coding their own solutions. And I think that's one of the biggest issues: the fact that, one, our community is not informed and up to date with the latest technological news. Two, um, people don't see themselves as tech creators. And then three, there's not enough of tech opportunities for our communities because again, of institutional racism, educational, and even also the professional world. They discriminate against our communities. So those are things that we need to address.
I should mention that a main goal of Latinx America is to highlight people like you so we can inspire more Latinx to become creators, founders, and investors, and we can finally change the narrative for our community. We often talk about some of the issues or barriers that we know exist, but we also want people to be inspired by you and other change makers. Now, let's move on to the next question. You're also a digital innovator. You co-founded your own digital media venture, and you are very effective in terms of activism, engaging people and making sure that our community takes action. So, what role has technology played in your success?
Um, a huge technology has played big it has played a big role in my success in creating some of these platforms, and also strategies to raise awareness via social media. So the first one, I think, is the fact that when it comes to the role of immigration, many immigrant rights organizations, it has taken them a while to understand the power and influence of social media. I remember back in 2011 when I was an intern, and I was, helping several immigrant rights organizations at the local, statewide, and national levels. One of the things that I told them at that point in time was, if you invest more in your digital infrastructures, you could be like an extremely influential political organization, possibly even bigger than the NRA. And I would tell them, I helped them create their social media infrastructure, but it took them a long time to understand the power of social media and tech. So I decided to do, engage in, do my own projects. I co-founded on Documedia, and through these different platforms, I implemented some of those ideas that I had with technology, and bringing media and these issues in a more digestible, uh, you know, uh, kind of content for everyone. And it proved successful, and it's because when we think about how not only the millennial generation, but also every single individual, how we consume content, we want content really fast. We want to see something, consume it, and then move on, right? When it comes to the world of activism and political engagement, yes, we want people to understand whatever we want to convey as fast as possible, but we also want their attention. But most importantly, we want them to take action and to care about their communities. So that is the most difficult aspect. And technology provides, a faster way to reach more people. So that's one thing that technology has been helpful. The fact that before I was limited to the number of people I knew in person. With Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, it's that those limits go out the window. Now it can reach anyone from around the country and from around the world, and we have followers from all over the country and from all over the world. And it's really easy for me to pick up the phone and reach someone in Wisconsin or Florida and tell them about the latest news on immigration. So that in itself, the fact that I can go beyond time zones and tell people, look, this is what's affecting our communities, or this is how you can take action, that is really powerful. The fact that I can go ahead and set up, websites, I can build my own, technological infrastructure to make my life more easy and to be able to respond to these messages without having, without me being in my computer. That is really efficient and powerful. And it gives me a competitive advantage over other individuals. Or it most importantly, it helps me provide better opportunities and more more information to our communities, because we want them to be updated with the latest information and we want them to take action. So it definitely has been helpful. And the fact that I'm really curious and I'm always learning more and more, that puts me in a really interesting position to bridge both worlds, that of social activism, civic engagement, and also tech.
Justino, what are the tools of the trade that you use? What do you use to be as effective as you are in mobilizing your community?
Yeah, that's a good question. So when it comes to stories, you know, it depends. I rely on my phone. I do mostly when it comes to creating, posts for social media for our different accounts. I rely mostly on my phone to create everything. Before, I would use Illustrator and Photoshop to create graphics and to create certain posts. But then, eventually I realized that that was time consuming. So I ended up using just, mobile applications to do all of that. And, I create memes on my phone. I go ahead and, share content from other accounts. So, those are two things that I do mostly, content creation and content curation. I go ahead and repost stories from other accounts. And I always have to look for those elements that I think are essential to make a post go viral, or just to make sure that it reaches individuals and that, its message goes through and, goes through people, and that people are able to understand it. Um, and when it comes to coding, I know several programming languages. I know C, C++, Java, Ruby, JavaScript, SQL, and many other, platforms. I know how to create websites also on WordPress and Drupal. So I have a really good understanding of what, technological tools I need to use whenever I want to work on a campaign. And that, having that tech background, it gives me better understanding as to how to, basically leverage all those social media platforms, because sometimes, you can find really interesting I would say loopholes in some of these platforms that can make yourself, your life as an organizer more efficient, effective. So, for instance, one perfect example was, the Facebook platform. So for a very long time, since 2011, when we would create Facebook events and invite people to events, marches, rallies, etc. One of the things that you can do, by creating a Facebook event, you can go ahead and, invite your friends. If you have, 1,000 friends, 500 friends, then you can go ahead and invite them one by one. But that can take you, several hours because you have to scroll down and then click invite, invite, invite.
Mhm.
So at one point I realized, oh, you can quickly select all those elements, like make the browser scroll down, and then also select them if you write a JavaScript, a JavaScript code. So I realized this back in 2012, and then I ended up using that code to basically invite all my friends. So instead of spending several hours inviting every single one of them, I would spend like literally 1 or 2 minutes, and I would let the code, do the inviting on its own. So it's, when it comes to, this kind of work, I definitely do, at the moment, most of the work on my phone by using several mobile apps. And whenever I need to code or build something, then I use my laptop.
Great. So this means that anyone with an iPhone can create digital content and make it accessible to people. I really like the example you shared about coding, since you did exactly what you advocate for and wrote a simple program using Java to save you a lot of time and effort. Since you mentioned Facebook, what are some of the things that you learned at the recent Facebook conference that you attended in San Jose? Can you share with us what's in the pipeline?
Yeah. So more than a month ago, I was invited by Facebook to attend their, annual, uh, Facebook conference, and they brought back their, hackathon. And I was one of those chosen individuals to also participate in the hackathon. So that gave me an opportunity to connect with other, community leaders, people who are managing really large accounts on social media, ranging from many different issues, and to, talk to them, and also, talk to other developers and create tools to, bring these communities closer together, and also to, make them easier to connect and to take action. Um, One of the things that not only Facebook but also other tech companies keep building on is, machine learning and artificial intelligence. They're finding ways to integrate these technologies into their current systems to make it easier to predict what people want, how to assist individuals, do better things on Facebook. But with that also comes, challenges, not only technological challenges, but also moral challenges. Because after the conference, about a week later, I learned that, and this came out on the news, that Facebook had, implemented a new system for, Facebook ads that would basically ban undocumented immigrants from purchasing political advertisements. So for me, that was a red flag because, as a political activist myself, as an immigrant rights activist myself, I had been using Facebook advertisements to, educate, inform, and mobilize the immigrant community around these very important issues that affect me personally and directly. And when, when I learned about this, I went ahead and reached out to Facebook. And at the moment, I'm still in communication with, with representatives to try to figure out how to create a solution so that it does not affect undocumented immigrants in the United States. So these are the things that, sometimes, you don't learn until later on, when, either a reputable media entity talks about these issues, or if they talk about them at the conference. At the conference, they didn't say anything about that. They just said that they were working on, better systems to prevent foreign, political intervention, such as, what happened with Russia, which seems, definitely justifiable. But when it comes to, the latest technology, this is information that, one, um, if only if you go to these conferences you can learn about them, or if you know where to find this information, you can, learn about these. But our community, because there is no, I guess, push for our community to learn these technological breakthroughs or these technological news, most of our community won't learn about these things until it comes out on the news. And that's one thing that, we definitely need to change. We definitely need to change that culture of waiting to learn until it becomes news. So we have to be take a more proactive role and use these resources, use these tools, the World Wide Web, Google, Bing, etc., to learn about these platforms and learn the latest changes that these companies are implementing.
Justino, you are a great advocate for our community, and I am glad that you're at the table advocating for our community and informing us. But you are only one person. So, how can we get more Justinos or Justinas to step up and become active in learning about tech and follow your footsteps and delve into the world of technology?
Yeah, that's a really great question. Um, being an undocumented immigrant and then being a, someone who was interested in tech, for me, I never had a role model that I could, reach out to and say, hey, what should I do? Which classes should I take? Are there any internship or fellowship opportunities that, that I should take or look into in order to, become a better software engineer? So I think one thing that we need to do is, for all, people of color, Latinos, immigrants, Asian Americans, etc., African Americans who are in the tech world, who already have, a profession, for them to become mentors and for them to, go back to their communities and provide this information, because that information is extremely valuable. And the moment they become mentors, they can open the doors to, so many other people of color to, join these, this tech world, and also for them to become innovators and creators. So I think that's one thing that needs to change. Another thing is also changing how our educational system approaches teaching STEM. I think there needs to be more investment in these classes and these courses, so that way our students, the younger generation, can get the latest information and be better equipped to succeed in the STEM fields. Another thing is also taking risks. I think it is really important for people to lose not lose the fear, but I challenge their fear and take risks when it comes to using tech to create resources. Many times I meet people who ask me, "Oh, we want you to develop this platform, or we would love for you to work on this," or perhaps who might express their concerns about using technology to improve their political activism, or etc. And I tell them, sometimes we have to take risks because that's the only way that we can learn. We can learn from our mistakes, and that can give us a better insight and analysis as to how we can utilize technology. Because the fact of the matter is that technology is here to stay, and we have to be proactive, and we have to find the ways to leverage this new technology, and also to create it ourselves.
You make a really good point because some in our community tend to be risk averse, and the last thing that we want to do is to widen the opportunity gap because we're afraid to take a risk, especially when it comes to technology in general. Now, tell us, what are you most passionate about when it comes to tech and your work as an activist?
I am interested in finding ways to at the current moment, I would say that I'm becoming more interested in connecting with other undocumented software engineers, and getting them connected with the immigrant rights movement. One of the things that I learned over the many years is that at one time my passion was creating platforms. For instance, I would go to hackathons and work with other DACA recipients, who are software engineers, to create tools to increase civic engagement online. And they would prove successful. We would have success and traction. But one thing that I learned is that I cannot build all those tools myself. I'm really limited, and sometimes I don't know all the technologies really well. So I realized it would be best if I can connect with all the undocumented software engineers, um, and find ways to collaborate and create some sort of like national network, so that way we can create these tools of mass resistance. So at the current moment, that's one of my passions, connecting with other DACA recipients, documented individuals who are technologists, who know how to code, so that way we can brainstorm and come up with better ways to assist and help our communities.
So, if any of you listening know any DACA or undocumented software engineers, please send us a note to latinxamerica@gmail.com so we can connect Justino with other software engineers who can help him scale efforts. If we come together and collectively contribute to social impact causes, we can still have Justino help lead the way, but not everything would fall on your back, and we can amplify our efforts. You are also a storyteller, and many people rely on Undocumedia for life-changing or life-impacting information. Who are other movers and shakers who are using, leveraging, or creating technology effectively to change the narrative for our community?
Yeah. So on Documedia, both my co-founder and I have, done a lot of work to, expand the community and reach individuals, through not only storytelling, but also through, memes and, by reposting content from other accounts. And there are many accounts who are doing that, not only within the world of immigration, but also, within other communities and other issues. And there's many others. At one point in time, about back in 2014 and 2015, I could definitely give you like 10 accounts, no more than 10 accounts, and tell you these are the the movers and shakers on Instagram when it comes to these social issues. And right now, there's been more and more accounts that are coming up and who are doing amazing work on social media. So I can name a couple of them. So one of them is, slay the patriarchy. And, they talk about, toxic masculinity, patriarchy in our society, and they do amazing work. Another one is intersectional femme. And, there are another Instagram account who do amazing work. Um, and there's also, I believe, something democracy on, I forgot what it's called exactly, but it has a name, the word democracy on social media. There's also Millennials for Revolution, I believe. I think that's what it's called. So there are many accounts on social media who focus on many different issues. Some of them focus on, intersectional feminism. Other ones focus on Black Lives Matter. Other ones focus on issues affecting, the Asian American community, who have, different, I would say, specialties, and who are the movers and shakers of those specific issues. And they, those communities are growing. There's, more and more collaborations taking place. And the amazing thing about this is that everything is happening organically. It's mostly young people who have grown tired of the current system and who have decided, what, we can use these platforms, we can use, um, or storytelling strategies to, raise awareness and mobilize people to take action. And that's the exciting thing about this, because at one point in time we thought, okay, these are going to be the accounts that are going to be bringing about change. But now, more and more are, coming together. And for me, it's going to be, it's really exciting to look at the 2018 elections, look at 2020, and know that these accounts are going to be extremely essential to mobilize, young people, the progressive, bloc, to, vote, come out and vote, and, and be more proactive in our communities.
One of the things you mentioned earlier was your involvement in hackathons. What are hackathons, and how can we get more Latinx to participate in these events?
Yeah. So a hackathon is an event. Traditionally, it's a 24-hour event in which, technologists, mostly software engineers and, graphic designers, they come together to work on, on solutions to address a specific issue. So the way they work is, these hackathons are announced, several months in advance. You sign up, you create a team, you show up with a team, usually between, 3 to 5 people. And, again, these teams are mostly composed of people that know how to code and, maybe a graphic designer. And then at the hackathon, at the event, there's, several teams, and all of them compete to create mobile applications, websites, or even hardware too, to address certain issues. And the hackathon, sometimes they have, certain themes. Some of them can be about, how to create, I guess, how to create the next social networking platform, or how to address homelessness, or perhaps immigration. And at the end of the hackathon, at the end of the 24-hour, coding challenge, you present your solution to the crowd, and then the judges, there's a panel of the judges that judge each project on many different things. One, creativity. Does it address the issue at hand? How complex is the application, etc. And then, they provide different prices. So for me, hackathons are really important because sometimes people have ideas or they want to do things, but they take a very long time to bring their ideas into reality. So hackathons force you to think about your idea, come up with a MVP, and come up with a prototype and make it work within 24 hours. And that forces you to sometimes even think out of the box, think about ways, or think better about the problem. And for me, I think that our immigrant community already has those skills, right? Because we have to be resourceful. We have to think about how to navigate a system that is against us every single day. So I think the people that are, I guess not better equipped, but that are definitely equipped to be successful in hackathons are undocumented immigrants, because we have to be creative, innovative, and resourceful. And for me, bringing hackathons to the immigrant community is extremely important, because we can break that notion that technology only belongs to Silicon Valley. So last September, we organized the first immigrant youth-led, undocumented youth-led hackathon in the country, and it took place here in LA. And I took the lead in bringing people together, reaching out to other organizations such as Forward.us, ACLU, the Latino Coalition for Healthy California, the UCLA Labor Center, to host this hackathon and bring undocumented software engineers and mentors. And it was really powerful because we had 10 teams and all of them had amazing ideas. Their presentations were amazing. It was, one of the most, well thought out and well executed applications that I have seen in so many of the hackathons that I have attended. And, the reason why we hosted it here in LA is because most of the hackathons are being hosted, in Silicon Valley. And for me, we wanted to send a message to the immigrant community that we can also be, creators, that we can be innovators. And, what better way to host it in the largest, the city that has the largest undocumented immigrant population. So yes, that's how that's one way to get people involved.
Great. You're actually leading by example in creating opportunities for immigrant engineers to become creators, and I hope that the hackathon in LA becomes an annual event. Okay, now let's go back to your personal story. Who has influenced you the most and why?
Yeah, so that's an easy question. So the person that has influenced me the most is my mom. Um, so my mom is a single mother. She brought us to the United States at the age of 11 in the summer of 2000. And she faced so many obstacles, not only being a single mom, but also an undocumented immigrant woman of color in a country that, doesn't appreciate who she is. And, growing up here in the United States, um, she left everything behind in Mexico with a really tiny support network here in the United States. And, her being the only person, a single mom, and giving us, having to work multiple jobs to be able to give us food and shelter and clothing. For me, that was incredible. It was, it's still unbelievable to me how she managed to do all of that. So whenever I think about problems, any kind of problems, not only personal, professional, and also even, coding as well, I think about my mom, because she always found a way to come up with a solution to a situation that seemed impossible. So I think about her and I think there's got to be a way to write some piece of code that does X, Y, and Z. And she's definitely the person that she has influenced me the most, because she always found a way to become to be resourceful, to innovate, to create. If we didn't have food, we would make tamales and we would go sell tamales on the weekends. There was always a solution, and she's definitely the person that has influenced me the most.
What you share about your mom and her resourcefulness really made me think about my first job, which was selling watermelons with my dad so we could bring in money to support my family. These experiences have really helped shape, I think, who we are. And although difficult at that time, we are now who we are because of the challenging times that we faced in life. So now on to my last question. What is your next play?
I don't want to reveal my my secrets.
Okay.
However, I definitely want to, continue advocating for my community. I want to find, better ways to use technology to, empower not only the immigrant community, but all the oppressed communities in the United States, and make a bigger change. I guess I've been a risk taker, but I feel that I need to take bigger risks. So that's one of the things that I'm going to be doing in the next couple of months.
Justino's story was powerful, and here are some takeaways from our conversation. You have to find a way to stay up to date with the latest tech news, whether it's by searching on the internet or subscribing to news sites that will keep you informed of the latest moves and policies. We need to see ourselves as creators and begin participating in events such as hackathons, where we can put our skills to work to create apps or solutions to address issues impacting our community. Also, we need to create opportunities for us and for others, whether it's by offering to become a mentor or sponsoring events such as a hackathon that Justino organizes. And finally, Justino is a very effective activist and engineer, but he can't do it alone. If you would like to contribute to a greater cause, reach out to him directly through LinkedIn or follow on Documedia. Thanks for joining us today. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook at Latinx America, on Twitter at America Latinx, or email any questions or ideas to latinxamerica@gmail.com. Gracias y hasta la próxima semana.